I'm Claudia Catania, and you're listening to Playing on Air. You are about to hear A Departure, written by Andy Reynolds, whose work has played at theaters throughout the Northeast. His play, The Memory of Mollusks, was a finalist at the Eugene O'Neill National Theater Conference. A Departure is directed by Michael Wilson, whose Broadway credits include Gore Vidal's The Best Man and Dividing the Estate and The Trip to Bountiful, both by Horton Foote. He has directed extensively at the Hartford stage and across the nation. A Departure's cast boasts Len Cariou, whose Broadway starring roles are legendary. They include Applause, A Little Night Music, Proof, and the original production of Stephen Sondheim's Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, for which he won a Tony. A Departure also features Michael Urie, who for his work in Buyer and Seller received much acclaim. His New York credits include Broadway's How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, and on TV, he played Mark St. James on Ugly Betty. And now, A Departure. This short play takes place in two scenes. We open in a private office of a large company. It is early morning. We hear Matt in his office on the phone mid-conversation.
Johan! Listen to me. I am not suggesting that you break any international trade agreements. Believe me, I learned that lesson the hard way. But I am telling you that if those purifiers don't get there by Thursday at the latest, I'm going to kill somebody. Not sure who, possibly you, possibly myself. Just know that if it doesn't happen, blood is going to be on your hands. And while I'd love to stay here all day and chat about import duty rates and unruly customs agents, I unfortunately have another call. Get back to me when you have some good news. Terrific. What fresh hell is this? Hello?
Matt?
Yep.
You're not busy, are you, Matt?
Dad? No. Yes. What's up, Dad?
Why aren't you at work?
I am at work.
But you're not busy.
Who said I'm not busy?
You're answering your personal phone, aren't you? Some job you have.
Where are you? I don't recognize this number.
It's my cellular phone.
Since when do you have a cell phone?
It's new.
I thought you were staging a one-man protest against technology of all shapes and sizes.
Well, cellular phones cause brain cancer. It's proven fact.
And yet the one you're using now must be dangerously close to your head.
I have the Bluetooth.
Welcome to the 21st century. What brought on this sudden reversal?
Brian got it for me.
Oh, of course he did.
Can you come to the airport?
What?
I'm at the airport.
What airport?
BWI.
What are you doing in Baltimore?
I took the train in. My plane doesn't leave until 4 o'clock, but you know how I like to be early. I haven't gone through security yet. Can you come?
Dad, I'm at work.
On a personal call. Obviously, they don't need you that badly.
I can't just leave in the middle of the day.
Why not?
I have a meeting in 20 minutes. We're kind of in crisis mode here.
So?
So I can't drop everything just because you happen to have some time to kill at the airport. Where are you going anyway?
Are you sitting down?
Do I need to?
You might.
Jesus, Dad, you're scaring me. What's going on?
It's your grandfather. He's in a bad spot.
Aren't we all?
Wise guy. He's dying.
Oh, God.
He's on life support. And your Uncle Joe's already there, but I'm the oldest, so they're waiting for me to make the final decision.
I'm really sorry, Dad. I always liked visiting Grandpa, even though we didn't go very often.
Is your will up to date, Matthew?
Dad, I'm not even 35. I don't have a will. I don't have anything good to will anybody.
That's no excuse. It's never too early. Best to be prepared.
Okay, Dad. I'll get right on that.
So I'll see you soon. I'll wait for you by the Starbucks in the main terminal.
I don't know. I'll have to ask my boss.
You have to ask? I thought you had some impressive title. Director of something or other. At my work, if someone needs to take a day off, they take it.
Maybe that's how it's done at your work, but that's not how it works where I work.
Well, then maybe you shouldn't work there.
Listen, I know you're upset about Grandpa.
I'm not upset.
Your father's dying and you're not upset. Right, got it.
Oh, for God's sake, Matthew. I never see you. We live less than an hour apart, and I never see you. You're always so busy. I took the first train and got here early specifically. The least you can do is come and sit with me at the airport until it's time for my flight to go and say goodbye to my father.
Okay, Dad. I'll try.
You know what? Forget it.
Oh.
Don't trouble yourself. Have a nice day.
Oh. Damn. Hey, Dad.
It's good to see you, Matt. What happened to your meeting?
Oh, I rescheduled. I can do that. After all, I am the director of something or other.
What's the crisis?
Oh, deadlines to be met, embargoes to be lifted, worlds to be saved. Usual.
I almost didn't recognize you.
I was about to say the same thing to you. It's been a while. Did you shrink?
I think you got bigger.
Well, you're right. Speaking of, do you feel like getting something to eat?
Nah.
Okay. Well, then, what should we do? Want to walk around? Or I hate airports. There's nothing like an airport to make people behave like animals. Look, Dad, I'm sorry about earlier. I didn't mean to snap at you. Last thing I want is to make this harder for you. I love Grandpa. You know I do. I remember going to the farm when I was little. Grandpa would drive us around in the tractor, and Brian and I would fight over who got to sit up front. He usually won. Until that time, I almost fell off, and from then on, I always sat in your lap, and you'd hold on to me and wouldn't let go.
I remember.
What's going to happen? I mean, with the farm?
We'll sell it.
Can't just sell it. It's been in our family for, forever.
What do you suggest we do with it?
I don't know, but selling it, that's a big step.
You want to take it over?
Well,
Give up your life here, your fancy job, doing whatever it is that you're doing?
I wasn't saying...
Do you want the farm or not?
This might not be the time to make rash decisions.
You think I haven't thought about this before? I never wanted that farm. I'll be glad to wash my hands of it. We'll have the funeral there. No need for you or your brother to come.
Don't be ridiculous. Of course we're gonna go.
There's no need.
I want to go.
You're busy. So's Brian.
How is Brian?
He's good.
And Dad? The baby?
Good.
Mom?
She's good. How are you?
I'm good. Busy. Work.
I heard something about that man you work for. How he's supporting communists.
He doesn't support communists. Just because he donates money to liberal causes.
I heard he gave millions to that socialist campaign.
Oh.
And millions to defend terrorists.
Where did you hear that? Fox News?
Yes.
Oh, well, it's just not true. He supports the creation of democracies. And why are we talking about this again? We're never going to agree.
I don't know how a son of mine has turned into such a left-wing nutcase.
Oh, come on.
At least it's just you. At least my Brian has a head on his shoulders.
Oh, yes, everyone knows your Brian is perfect.
Gary isn't a radical, too, is he? He's in business. He must know better.
Gary's gay and Jewish.
So there aren't any gay Jewish Republicans?
Not too many. And I certainly wouldn't marry one of them.
Marry?
Gary and I are getting married.
You didn't tell me.
I know. I didn't know how you... I told Mom. I thought she'd break the news. Soften the blow.
Does Brian know?
He's gonna be my best man.
I see.
You don't have to come if you don't want to. I mean, I don't want you to be uncomfortable.
I see.
Of course, we want you to be there if you want. I mean, we're family, right? Even if we act like we're from different planets, we're still family.
How could you think that... Oh, that song. I hate that song. Brian did that to vex me. Hello? Yeah, Joe, hello. Hey, can you hear me okay? I'm on my new cellular phone. Brian got it for me. Yeah, I see. So he... Okay. Yeah. Heart failure? When? Well, it was good that one of us was there. Yeah, I'll see you soon. I get in at 7. Fine. Goodbye.
Dad. You okay? Dad?
He didn't want me to go to college. Can you believe that? Even though I had a scholarship? He wanted me to stay on the farm, work with him. But I wanted something else. You know how he is. Was. Never easy to get along with, even in the best of circumstances. But I stood up to him, for once. Just said no. And he got angry, very angry. He didn't say much, but I knew. Believe me, I knew. The day I left for school, he threw out everything I'd left behind, every trace of my childhood, as if he wanted to forget I existed. Even my baseball autographed by the entire 67 St. Louis Cardinals. I never really forgave him for that. After I married your mother and we had you kids, we'd go back once in a while, but each visit would end in a disaster. He'd become a bitter old man. We argued. Got easier after my job transferred me. Distance made things less strained. Although even then it was always a bumpy flight. But now, looking back, I wish I'd reached out to him. That I'd taken advantage of him. What do they say? Hindsight is 20/20. No matter how much you think you're prepared for it, it's a terrible thing to realize that your parents aren't going to be around forever.
I know.
Hello. What's your mother? Hello, Elizabeth. The old man's gone. No, it's not going to be easy. But I have Matt here. My Matt is here with me.
You just heard A Departure, written by Andy Reynolds, directed by Michael Wilson, and starring Len Cariou and Michael Urie. Andy Reynolds, playwright. This play, if I understand correctly, is inspired by a live storytelling experience, My Father's Love by J. Dixit, which originally appeared at the Moth. How did that story resonate with you?
I think Jay's story was very evocative about father-son relationships, and his story definitely made me think about my own relationship with my father. I think men in particular have difficulty communicating with each other, especially in today's environment, text and email and cell phones. And I think it requires a face-to-face meeting for people to really connect. Meeting in a public place like an airport where you feel, I think because of the chaos and the noise, you feel more able to express yourself in a clearer way is a great opportunity for this kind of scene to play out. So his story definitely gave me an insight and a way of approaching my own relationship with my father, and I think many people's relationships with their parents in a kind of interesting way.
Michael, Urie, how does your own father-son relationship inform this piece for you?
Well, I know certainly politically these two characters are on opposite sides and seem to have found a way of not talking about politics, probably after quite a while of talking about politics. And I feel very lucky that both my parents and I agree on politics. Makes Thanksgiving much easier than stories I hear. And in terms of my father and I, and his dad died when he was a kid. So he has always really valued the time we have. Because he lost his dad, and I never even knew him, right? Obviously. So he's been pretty good about that.
Len?
Well, my father was a traveling salesman, and we were in Canada and grew up, and the family hardly knew him, simply because he would go out on Monday and come back on Saturday, and you never saw him Saturday. The only time you really saw him was Sunday at dinner. And so it was that kind of a relationship, and you always kind of were striving to know a little bit more about him. And he was a veteran of the First War, and walked with a limp from a shrapnel from a grenade that he had embedded in his butt, and crippled his hands a little bit. He had very, very bad arthritis in his hands. He could hardly hold a pen. So my mother used to write his reports for him on Sunday. So they would go in, and you never saw him until Sunday night at dinner, and then Monday morning he was gone before he even went to school. And that's by way of saying that he lived till he was in his late 60s. And at 65 in those days, 65, you had to retire no matter what you did. And it was something that I think really killed my father, is that he stopped doing what he did, and he didn't know what to do. And he just sort of dried up. He finally did something that he never should have been doing. Had an accident, fell and landed on that butt, and apparently released a cancer into his body, and that took him. And the point of this story for me is that I was at Stratford, Ontario at the time when he got sick, and I heard from my mother. She said, your father's sick and he's in hospital, and he was in a veterans hospital, and you might think about coming home and seeing him. And I didn't, for some reason, and I regret that terribly, that I never got to go back and say goodbye to him. But when my mother became ill, I made damn sure that I went to see her, and I happened to be making a film in Vancouver at the time, and my mom I got the phone call, and I said, from my sister, and I said to the producers, I said, I'm going home to see my mother. She's on her deathbed. And I got there, and we had a chat, and the other siblings had been there except for my middle brother, who hadn't been there yet, and I had to go back to Vancouver, and then he came to Winnipeg, where my mother was, and maybe a half hour after she saw him, she went. So this thing resonates that way with me.
I think there's so many things I think that Andy's play touches for me. I'm the last of the the baby boomer generation. I was born in '64, and so, though Will and Grace was alive during my time of coming of age as a young gay man, it was still coming out to your parents was still a big deal, and I think it still is for gay people. I'm hoping it's easier now. That it's more proliferated in the culture.
Depends on the family.
Of course. Well, I came from a Southern Baptist family, so it was not going to be an easy thing. But I do remember they had come to visit me in Houston. I was working at the Alley Theater there, and I was in my early 20s. And we had a particularly frustrated visit together because I couldn't be honest about what was going on, and I was going through a terrible breakup, and it was really painful, and they didn't know why I was so sad and so moody. And anyway, I FedExed a letter to my father, and I told him in the letter that I was gay, and that if they didn't want me to come home that Christmas, that I would understand. And my dad then called me at the office the day that he got the FedEx, and he said, are you there? I'm going to go home at lunch, and I'm going to call you from the house. And when he got home, we talked through some things, and then all of a sudden the phone went quiet, and he had started crying. And I basically was like, this moment, I said, Dad, and I said, are you okay? And I didn't know why he was crying. And then he said, I can't believe that you would think your mother and I wouldn't want you to come home at Christmas. And that was that was the biggest thing, that he thought that I would feel that unwanted, unloved. And he also said at that time, I just don't want you to get sick, because we were still in that era too of AIDS raging. But then as time wore on, he taught Sunday school at the church. He was the treasurer for First Baptist in Winston-Salem, and the Gay Pride Parade was coming through Winston-Salem, and the inevitable queer jokes started coming up in the room before the class was getting started, and apparently my father, I've told to me later, on the front row raised his hand and said, before anybody says anything else, I'm marching in that parade today. So. And so I think the play, you don't have to be, you're not, whether you're gay or straight or whatever it is, this notion of how we get splintered as families, and also the aloneness of when we lose our parents. And I think people that have their parents alive are so lucky. I'm so lucky to still have my mother alive, although I've lost my dear father. It's a beautiful, poignant, funny play that I think is very relevant today.
Wow. This short play deals with other dichotomies, on many levels. There's the politically conservative versus the liberal, the older versus the younger, the gay versus the straight, the city versus the country. Andy, Michael, which of these is most important to you, Andy, in terms of having written the play?
That's hard because they're so, for me, they're so linked. Obviously, the political is very important to me, and that I feel like at this point in time, there's such blue state, red state, such animosity between people, neighbors, family, friends, and I feel like there has to be some more communication, more reaching out, more trying to understand other people's points of view. And I think that's probably true across any time there's a difference between people. It was the worst experience in my life when my mother died. I'll never forget that. And what was interesting is afterwards how all of my relationships with my family changed after that. That was a turning point. My relationship with my father, it changed. And I think these things are powerful moments in your life where good can come out of it, even though it's the most horrendous experience of your life. I think my relationship with my father got stronger. He would call me with problems, whereas before, when my mother was alive, we didn't really talk that often. And the same with my siblings. We rallied together in the aftermath of that horrendous experience. So I think the play tries to capture that in a little way. I mean, in a 10-minute version.
The opportunity to reconnect out of loss and
Yes.
the chaos of that.
Exactly.
And I think the place is, really making a clarion call in these very polarized times, that if we do find ourselves in these divided familial situations, that we don't let the cloak of politics or party politics particularly be a permanent rift between families. And I think the play helps people think about, I still want to hold on to my family, no matter how hard that is at a given moment. The theater is about communion and a sense of coming together. And that's why I love the theater, because I think it teaches us, encourages us, and gives us the strength to be that way.
And hopefully teaches us to listen. I think the hardest thing that an actor has to learn to do is to listen. That was instilled in me very early on in my career. I once heard from a director who I said, I was so good you don't have any notes for me? And he said, notes? You want notes? When you learn to listen and practice humility, maybe when you'll be 40, you'll be an actor.
Good advice for anybody.
Absolutely.
Not just actors.
Yeah.
For playwrights, I feel like it's important what is said, but it's also just as important what isn't said, what the character may have difficulty saying, what they would never say. This process was fantastic to watch between Michael and Len.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this has been a great pleasure and privilege. Thank you so much. We have been chatting with playwright Andy Reynolds, director Michael Wilson, and cast Len Cariou and Michael Urie. Thank you so much for joining Playing on Air. You've been listening to Playing on Air, great American short plays with great American actors. Theme and play music by Tom Cochan. Recording and sound design by John Kilgore. Associate producer, Sasha Spitzer. Literary and development associate, Lucy Fleming. Social media and outreach, Bonnie Antosh. Distributed by PRX, Public Radio Exchange. We invite you to visit our website at playingonair.org, where you can stream short plays and find information about our artists and plays. Join us on Facebook or Twitter, and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. While you're there, leave us a review. We value your opinion. For Playing on Air, I'm your host, Claudia Catania. Thanks for listening.